Electricity is essential to the economic and social interests of any nation. However, Nigeria as a country is still overwhelmed and plashed with electricity concerns, from low generation, poor supply, to load shedding and rationing, and this has become the bane of the citizens and entrepreneurs. Therefore, the implications of the COVID-19 pandemic on the power sector cannot be overemphasized. Hello and thanks for joining us again on TV and Business Daily. I am Chiwendu. This is Sego, and today we shall be discussing more on the state of the power sector in Nigeria. But before we proceed with that, let's look at what is happening in the business world. Despite lockdown introduced to contain the spread of COVID-19 in the country, huge cash transfer in the economy had continued to rise as currency in circulation rose to 3.35 trillion naira in May. Statistics obtained from the Central Bank of Nigeria on Monday show that the figure, which stood at 2.29 trillion naira as of the end of March, rose to 2.3 trillion naira as of the end of April. The Apex Bank stated that currency in circulation at end November 2019 rose by 9.9% to 2.2 trillion naira, in contrast to the decline of 0.4% at end of third quarter 2019. This approach involves tracking the movement in currency in circulation on a transaction-by-transaction basis. According to the Apex Bank analysis of the currency in circulation, showed that a large and increasing proportion of the Nigerian currency outside the commercial banking system was held by the general public, who hold a lot of the new banknotes. Investors gained 122 billion naira on Monday as the nation's stock market reversed the losses recorded last week. The Nigerian Stock Exchange All-Share Index appreciated by 0.93% as 31 firms recorded price appreciation. The ASI increased by 233.66 basis points from 25,016.30 last Friday to 25,249.96, while the market capitalization of equities appreciated by 122 billion naira to close at 13.05 trillion naira from 11.17 trillion naira. On the activities chart, the premier subsector dominated with 82.71 million shares traded in 1,617 deals, followed by activities in the shares of ABM Holdings PLC and United Bank for Africa PLC. The banking subsector was boosted by activities in the shares of Guaranty Trust Bank PLC and Jahiz Bank PLC. Plus, consumers are going to start paying more for prepaid meters as the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission has hiked the cost of the commodity. It was gathered in Abuja on Monday that the Commission had increased the price for the three-phase meter from 67,055 naira to 82,855.19, while the cost of a single-phase meter was raised from 36,991 naira to 44,896.16 naira. Operators in the sector told our correspondent that the new prices were contained in a memo signed by the NERC chairman, Professor James Momo, pegging the new price pursuant to Section 19 of the Meter Access Provider Regulation. But the introduction of the MAP model, according to stakeholders, had yet to adequately address the meter demand of customers. In a bid to mitigate the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on food production in Nigeria, the federal government has started the distribution of agricultural inputs to farmers nationwide. According to the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, the move would boost agricultural production and avert food scarcity in 2021. It said in a statement issued in Abuja on Monday that the input distributed to smallholder farmers included various varieties of seeds of rice, maize, wheat, and palm seasoning. The Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, Sabo Nanunu, inaugurated the distribution exercise in Kaduna. It said that the federal government will continue to support smallholder farmers with relevant inputs through association and cooperatives to ensure that the country does not experience food shortage as the result of the pandemic. And that's the business update on Television Nigerian. I am Chiwendu Osisiago. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back shortly.
My name is Chiwendu Osisiago, presenter Television Nigerian Business Daily. In a globalizing world, ours is to keep you engaged, informed, and educated on contemporary happenings in the business world. We therefore command a special audience of business-minded viewers who are eager to know more about business, your business. Why don't you take advantage of our special affordable offer to let the world know about your concepts, your goods, and of course, your services? You can call us on 080-3071-6959 or 070-3234-9054. You can also visit us at Television Nigerian in Guzapi, Abuja, and follow us on all our social media handles on Facebook, YouTube, and of course on Twitter at Television Nigerian. Your business is our concern.
Thanks for staying with us, and in case you're just joining us, it's still TV and Business Daily. Like I stated earlier, we shall be discussing on the state of the power supply in Nigeria. My guest is here in the studio with me. He is the CEO of Eltes Royal Limited and also a public affairs analyst, and more importantly, he is a business finance consultant. He is Mr. Leke Olatero Olagbegi. I hope I'm correct with the pronunciation.
Absolutely.
Okay, you're welcome to TV and Business.
Thank you very much, Chinwe.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the state of the power sector in Nigeria. How do you see this?
How do I see that? The state of the power sector is multifaceted because there are different players in the sector. There are GENCOs, which produce power. There's the Transmission Company of Nigeria, which is owned by the government. And there are the DISCOs. There's the Regulatory Commission, which is NEC. And of course, there are the consumers. Everyone knows that, state of supply of power in Nigeria is below par. We know that. Despite the installed capacity of, around 13,000, we are frequently unable to supply much more than 4,000 megawatts to consumers, and the reason are many. First of all, beginning from the privatization of the sector, where the GENCOs have a grouse with the federal government because they have not been able to enforce the terms of their contract. For example, when the GENCOs, when the power projects, the power sector was privatized in 2013, one of the things that the federal government was mandated to do was to provide guarantees to GENCOs, wherein when they send power to the DISCOs, the guarantee from the government ensures that they will be paid. Because the government has not been able to provide such guarantees, they have a lot of backlog of payments from DISCOs, and that is what has caused the backlog of debts in the power industry up to the tune of 1 trillion. Now, so from the point of view of the GENCOs, things can be better. Now, from the point of view of TCN is the company which is supposed to ensure that power is transmitted properly from the GENCOs to the distribution networks, but that's not happening. Reason simple: our transmission infrastructure is dilapidated. We need to improve it, and fortunately, that's the reason why the federal government recently signed the agreement with Siemens to upgrade the transmission and distribution infrastructure. Why is that important? People need to know that, because there are so many different components, when power is generated, it has to be transmitted, usually across long distances, to the end user. So if the system that's supposed to take it from where it is, basically to transport it to the end user, is not up to speed, then you find out that the whole system collapses. That's the reason why sometimes you find nationwide collapses in the national grid, up to 5, 6, sometimes 10 times in 1 year, where everywhere in the country, at least unless Aso Rock, there is no power. Then, of course, you look at the DISCOs. The DISCOs are responsible for ensuring that power gets into the homes and to ensure that they collect monies for the power which has been put out there for households to use. So the DISCOs have had their own challenges. They've not been able to collect funds, appropriately from the consumers. They've not been able to properly provide meters, because the function of collection is directly tied to metering. If you're unable to meter properly, then you will be unable to collect as much as you should. So according to industry statistics, only around 60% of all power supplied is actually paid for. You understand what I mean? And then there are other challenges which include power theft, people bypassing, illegal connections, and all such. So the state of the Nigerian power sector, it's really very difficult right now for different players. It's difficult for the GENCOs, difficult for TCN, It's difficult for investors because for investors, you want to come into an economy and invest your money to develop the power sector. But then when you're not guaranteed a cost reflective tariff, you have spent 10 naira, but the government is saying that, hey, you can't charge more than 5 kobo per what. If you're not able to get the value from your investment, then you'd rather not make it. So a lot has been done, a lot has been said, trillions of naira has been sunk in the Nigerian power sector. I would like to see a situation where the federal government takes the lead, as it has begun to do recently, saying, hey, look, all the systemic issues in the chain, we would like to fix them. For example, there was the MITO, or there is MITO, which is the multi-year tariff order, which was supposed to increase, every 2 years or so. But because of the political situation where the government is trying to please people, they say, no, you can increase, the cost of power. That's wrong, because some people are spending money to invest in the sector. If you do not allow them to reap the benefits of their investment, then nobody will come in to invest.
So now, how do you feel that this COVID-19 pandemic has actually affected the power supply now in Nigeria?
Wow. That's one big Pandora's box of a question. Okay, let's look at it from different perspectives. For example, from the perspective of the DISCOs, GENCOs, TCN. Let's look at revenues, for instance. There are three major categories of customers. They call them commercial customers, industrial customers, and residential customers, right? Now, because of the shutdown, a lot of the industries had to close. How is that significant? It's significant because the residential areas in Nigeria are partly subsidized by the payments made by the commercial and industrial sectors. So, for example, whereas they bill the industries high, they bill the residents, residential areas much lower. What this means is that those subsidies that should have been accruing to the GENCOs, to offset the cost of giving lower cost of power to the residential areas, that subsidy was zeroized, for a period while the shutdown persisted. So, as a result of that, it meant that everybody who used to be in the industries were now at home. So that increased supply to the residential areas. But the issue is the value you derive from the residential areas is much smaller. Okay? And another thing that you need to find out, whereas a corporate finds it harder to bypass the rules or to make illegal connections, most of the illegal connections you find are with residents. So it makes, from a revenue generation point of view, it's a nightmare for DISCOs, for GENCOs, and for TCN. But also, some people are actually smiling to the bank in this time. These so-called online vending companies who sell power, during the lockdown, a lot of people were constrained. They had to refill their prepaid meters. So they had to, patronize these guys. So it's different things for different people. Again, the government has tried to step in also. By April 1, an increase was required, an increase was due, rather, of the MITO to, a slight review of the MITO. But this was postponed by the government for like 3 months, at least until July, to try to provide a palliative to residents who are paying for power. So, again, also, you want to look at the operational issues that have arisen for DISCOs, for GENCOs, who have to maintain infrastructure that they're working with. But then because of the lockdown and restriction of movement, you can't move from one state to another. Cost of transport, cost of operations increases. It's been really difficult, for the power sector operators at this time.
So a lot of consumers have actually complained on the unavailability of our power supply. So now, who is to be blamed? Is it the government, or is it NEC that is to be blamed, or the GENCOs, or the TCN that is to be blamed for this?
Everybody. Let's start from the consumers. Okay, from the point of view of consumers, many people like you and myself and other people, we want to take power, we want to pay for it. Other people do not want to pay for the power. They're part of the problem. Okay? So when power is generated and you're not paying for it, then you're contributing to the problem. Let's move to DISCOs. The DISCOs are also part of the problem. They have failed to invest sufficiently in their distribution networks. The objective of the privatization was to get them to invest funds sufficiently so that when it is transmitted into their distribution area, they would be able to serve customers adequately. I'll give you an example of my own area. There's an issue we have. We have power for a while, and then after a while it goes off. Then after 2 minutes it tries to come back on, then it blinks. After 2 minutes, then it blinks. Once it blinks, I just tell my wife, no, this light is not coming back for another 12 hours. So that's pointing to a systemic issue within the network. So the discos have been unable or have been unwilling to invest in their distribution network. They've been unable or unwilling to invest in metering. Because the problem is very simple. If you introduce meters sufficiently, then you would be able to get people accountable. If you don't have power, you can use it. Let's move to the transmission company of Nigeria, which is responsible for transmission. As I said to you, Nigeria's transmission infrastructure, first of all, only connects about 40% of Nigerians. The remaining 60% are not even connected to the grid. But of the 40% that are connected, we don't even get the power. We don't even get the service. Nigeria is able to produce at any one time over 8,000 megawatts of power. I'm not talking of installed capacity. I'm talking of, operational capacity that is possible. But because the transmission infrastructure is so old, is so bad, they can't evacuate more than 4,000 thereabouts. Then you look at the GENCOs. I would like to place less, of a blame on the GENCOs because their own point is to, invest in the infrastructure and then push out power. As far as they're concerned, they're doing their bit. But the other chains in the other links in the chain are not functioning as well as they should. And then finally, the elephant in the room, the federal government. Yeah. The federal government should be the key driver. Unfortunately, power in Nigeria has been far too politicized for too long. There's poor corporate governance over the years. I'm not talking of now. It's slightly improving, but there's been poor corporate governance on the part of NEC. There's too much influence from politicians. We still have a subsidy. The federal government promised they will provide guarantees to investors. They've not been able to provide that. I can give you an example of our company. We work with some foreign companies who are interested in investing in power projects in Nigeria. But believe me, over the last couple of years, they have turned down most of the projects we have presented. Why? The reason is simple. Any foreign investor coming into this country to invest in your power sector wants some level of assurances from the government. If the government is unable or unwilling to provide it, then why should I come and invest here? I'll go and invest in Myanmar. I can invest in Hong Kong. I can invest in Germany. Why should I come to some country where the government doesn't want to do what they need to do? So the government needs to get their acts together through the regulatory agency, through the Ministry of Finance, and in terms of getting the policy right. Yeah. So,
Okay, now, your power consumers are saying that consumers will start paying more for prepaid meters. But before we talk about that, let's just quickly go on a quick break. Then after the break, we'll talk more about that. So stay tuned.
My name is John.
I'm John.
My name is Khalifa.
Children's Day is the day set aside to create awareness on the problems children are facing and how to improve their welfare and solve them.
I stay healthy and boost my immune system by eating from different food groups like carbohydrates, proteins, and vegetables.
Apart from eating healthy and junk food, I have gone through all the immunization processes from tuberculosis to yellow fever. The health centers are open for everyone who wants to access immunizations. And don't forget, vaccines save lives.
I wash my hands regularly. When I want to cough, I use tissues and dispose of them properly, or I dab to cough.
I stay safe during this lockdown by wearing face masks and practicing social distancing.
I know you may be wondering if this lockdown stopped my education. Well, no, because I now have online classes.
I read my books and have a lesson teacher to support me during this pandemic.
I am stable. I am in this lovely environment. My parents are there for me, and I also exercise.
There are children who are unable to access clean and safe water. These children constitute the internally displaced people. They are marginalized and orphans who live in the rural areas and urban slums. Now, these children are unable to afford hand sanitizers. There is no hope for electricity, not to talk of internet access. This is surely a very unpleasant situation. However, we can come together to solve and tackle this challenge for the future.
Do you know that it is the right of every Nigerian child to be schooled, healthy, safe, and stable? The Federal Republic of Nigeria has a constitution that says so.
So I believe that children should be healthy, schooled, safe, and stable.
All hands must be on deck. Luna
Many thanks for joining us again, and in case you're just joining us, it's still TV and Business, and we've been discussing on the state of the power supply in Nigeria. My guest has been doing justice to that. He is the CEO of LTAS Royal Limited and also a public affairs analyst, a business finance consultant, Mr. Leke Olatere. Okay, now before we went on a break, I was saying that power consumers are to pay more for prepaid meters. Do you see this as a good move from the federal government?
It is neither a good nor a bad move. Because for you to make a comment on that, you need to understand the situation. In the last several months, the exchange rate, naira to the dollar, has gone through up to $470, $480. I mean, naira per dollar. And as of this week, I learned it was around $450. What that tells you is that the cost of importing anything into this country has increased. You know, I was telling you before the show started that I recently bought a phone for my wife, and it was the same case. They told me, look, the goods are not coming in, you know, screens are not coming in, new phones are not coming in. So the few that comes in, we try to make as much as we can, especially because we pay more to get the dollar. So it's just a fact of life, and it's a reality that we all have to live with. I mean, it's a macroeconomic issue. It's not something that you say, oh, the government has done, you know, something bad. Because if the consumer doesn't pay for it, who will pay for it? The government has to cough up a subsidy. They are already subsidizing the sector. I was reading an analysis yesterday that showed that over the last 4 years, Nigeria spent 31% of the value of our current reserves in subsidy. That is unacceptable. So for consumers, it's going to be very difficult to get meters at this time. It's going to pile on, you know, much greater hardship on an already hard situation, because the COVID-19 has affected a lot of people. In fact, everybody. When you go to supermarkets now, the value of Bonvita when you bought it, you know, a few months ago, it's not the same as today. The value of everything has gone up because of increased cost of operations, increased cost of raw materials and all of that. But it's just the reality. Nigeria, the government cannot continue to subsidize these things. It's not sustainable.
Okay, initially you spoke on the implications of this COVID-19 and the power supply, yeah? So how do you think this has affected businesses, especially small and medium enterprises, white-collar jobs and all that? How do you think that affected businesses in Nigeria today?
It's been terrible. From different points of view, you want to take a look at employees. Some employees are protected because they have long-term contracts, they have permanent positions, but others have not been so lucky, and that's the vast majority of people. Some employees during this time have had their salaries slashed. Some employees during this period have been disengaged because their business cannot afford to continue to pay them while they stay at home. For traders, it is bad because they generate funds on a daily basis. Most of them have their funds tied to the goods in their stores. They cannot, for example, someone selling mechanical parts cannot eat the mechanical parts. He has to get money to eat. So for traders who depend on the day-to-day survival, it's been really difficult. For other businesses who are able to continue to operate, it's a different story because, like I said earlier, cost of operations has increased. You know, some people who have to send out their staff who go by public transport cannot take public transport because now they have to charter a vehicle to convey their staff from one point to another. Traders who are bringing foodstuff from the north to Abuja, to the south, to the west. Cost of transportation has increased also because of the border closures. It's slower to move through all the checkpoints from Katsina State to Abuja. As a result of that, you say, it used to take me 1 day to get to Abuja. Now it takes me 2 days or even 3 days. I have to augment this cost of transport. Again, you look at people who provide the vehicles. I mean, not the drivers now, the people who provide the vehicles. The same thing. You know, so it's been really difficult. But like I said to you earlier, some businesses, and this is an eye-opener for everyone in this economy, not just in Nigeria, but for everyone in the world. Because now people are finding that you don't have to go have a meeting to have a meeting. You can now have a meeting on Zoom. You know, you have the team, you have the, you know, Google, you know, all the online conferencing software companies. They're making money. Online businesses now are making a killing because they don't have, you know, that high operations. They can run their businesses totally online. So it's been a mixed bag for different people, but overall, it's been a very trying time for businesses. Okay,
before we conclude, what do you have to say on this estimated billing? Because a lot of people, especially these are power consumers, are actually still receiving estimated billing with the whole COVID-19, you know. So what do you have to say on the estimated billing?
Very good question. Estimated billing is a very controversial subject because discos tend to overbill, you know, according to the complaints from different sources, including myself. The discos tend to overbill, and there's no, if they're able to prove how they arrived at the estimated bill, there will be no contention, you know. But if you have not been able to justify it, you've not provided me power, and you just slam me with a 20,000 or 15,000 bill at the end of the month, then I'm asking you, what are you doing? So estimated billing will continue as long as there are no meters in place. It's unavoidable. But what the regulatory agencies need to do, NEC in particular, what they need to do is to regulate the manner in which the estimated bills are provided. You need to show cause why you are charging me 15K. Not just to send me a bill and say, if I don't pay it by tomorrow, and there should be a process. You don't bring me a bill today and say I must pay tomorrow. What if I don't have the money? For example, people who have not been able to earn anything, like immediately after the lockdown, like a lot of people from AEDC and APB, like they stormed our estate, like they've been waiting to come and, you know, really attack everybody. Yeah, of course, because they've not been able to enforce over the period. But you have to do it reasonably. What if you've not been providing the power, which is the case for some households? You've not been providing the power, but you're sending the bills. Why should I pay?
It keeps increasing.
And it keeps increasing. Why should I pay? So these are the issues. For me, the sum total of my thoughts are as follows. I don't believe in subsidy. I don't agree to subsidy. I believe that everybody should pay for the power that they use. You know, but I also believe there should be fairness in the process. There should be transparency. You need to show why you're charging a certain amount. But in the long run, the consumers need much better protection from the regulators. You know, and if not, we end up with a chaotic situation where people receive their estimated bills and they begin to attack AEDC officials or to bypass and to create their own illegal connections.
Okay, in a very, very few words, what do you have to say to, you know, businesses, to your viewers, to the government?
To the government, this is your baby. Take care of it. To investors, let's hang in there. This time will pass. It's a difficult time, but we will get through this.
Yeah.
You know, the government has done a bit. We need to see more, especially in the area of protection of consumers, in the area of protection of investors, you know, to ensure that the system continues to flow as they ought to.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Liki Olatero, for coming on TV and Business. We're so happy today.
Thank you very much, Chinwe.
Yeah. I hope to have you some other time.
My pleasure.
All right, that's the much we have for you today on TV and Business. I am Chiwendi Osisiego, and don't forget that you can follow us on all our social media platforms, on Facebook, on YouTube, and of course on Twitter at